The bright studio lights cast a sharp glow over the desk as Senator J.D. Vance sat across from Stephen Colbert. The set was quiet, but the tension was loud. The audience, usually full of laughter and clapping, was now hushed. Cameras rolled. Millions were watching. Colbert's smile was missing. His hands were folded tightly, eyes fixed on the senator. "Senator Vance," he said, his voice firm, "your recent comments about childless voters have caused quite a storm." Vance tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I stand by my words," he said. Colbert leaned forward slightly. "Even if they alienate 40% of American adults." Murmurs ran through the audience like static electricity. Vance shifted in his seat. His jaw tightened. "Stephen, you're twisting my meaning," he replied, voice sharper now. Colbert didn't blink. "Then enlighten us." "I believe parents have a stronger stake in the future. That's all." Colbert tilted his head. "More than, say, teachers or soldiers." A gasp rippled across the room. Vance's fingers dug into his knees. "That's not what because, last I checked," Colbert interrupted. "Childless people pay taxes too." Temperature seemed to drop. The air felt heavy. "This is why Americans hate the media," Vance snapped, his voice rising. "Hatred?" Colbert asked, eyebrows lifting. "Or maybe just accountability?" The crowd whooped. Vance shot back. "No. Smug elitism is dangerous." Colbert's smile turned cold. "Says the Yale-educated venture capitalist turned populist." "Hero," the room erupted. Vance slammed his palm on the desk. "You wouldn't understand working-class values?" Colbert's tone turned deadly calm. "I grew up in a home that needed food stamps." Silence. Vance blinked. He didn't have a reply. Colbert leaned in. "Or does that not count because I didn't turn it into a best-selling memoir?" The audience gave a nervous laugh. Vance's mouth opened, then closed again. Off camera, his publicist was mouthing something urgent. Vance looked down. His hands were trembling. "This interview is over," he said, voice low and shaky. He tore off his mic and stood. Colbert watched him rise, running from tough questions. "Is that hillbilly values too?" The senator stormed off. A studio door slammed shut. The band scrambled to play. Producers waved at each other, confused and stunned. Colbert finally turned to the camera. "Well, that's a first." The audience laughed, unsure if it was real or part of the show. But far from the studio, in a secured building in Langley, Virginia, someone else was watching. In a quiet room filled with screens and headsets, CIA cyber analyst Maya Reyes froze. She rewound the footage again, fingers hovering over her keyboard. "Pause. Zoom in," she whispered. Something had caught her ear. Not the shouting, not the slam of the desk. Just before Vance ripped off his mic, there was a whisper. Low, quick, mechanical, almost encoded. She boosted the gain, filtered the audio, played it again. This time, it was clearer. A voice, not Vance's, in Russian. "The delivery is live." Maya stared at the screen, her stomach twisted. That wasn't background noise. That was a direct feed picked up through the senator's mic. It had been heard live across the country. She checked the timestamps. Phrase came right before the senator cracked, just seconds before his outburst. Her fingers moved fast. She copied the audio file, flagged it as a Category B anomaly, and submitted it for review. Then she waited. 10 minutes later, her screen blinked. She had been locked out of the file. Access revoked, assignment closed, no explanation. A cold chill spread across her arms. This wasn't just unusual. It was deliberate. Something had been buried. Back in New York, the clip of Vance walking off went viral. Social media exploded. #VanceQuits trended globally within minutes. Commentators called it a meltdown. Comedians mocked him. Political analysts replayed every second. Body language experts pointed out Vance's left eye twitching, a sign of stress. Media watchdogs praised Colbert's research. But nobody heard the whisper. Nobody except Maya. She knew it didn't belong. That voice, that phrase, it was planted. Signal hidden in plain sight. And it changed everything. Later that night, Colbert sat in his dressing room, still in his suit, replaying the moment on his phone. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He looked disturbed. "Did I go too far?" he asked a producer quietly. The producer shook her head, walked into every punch. But Colbert wasn't convinced. He rewound the footage, watched the exact second Vance's demeanor changed. And somewhere deep in a federal archive that whispered the delivery is live was already being classified and stored. Forgotten. By most, not by Maya. She opened a private email, typed one name in the address bar, Caleb Dwyer, then attached the file. She clicked send. She didn't know it yet, but that moment, not the walkout, not the trending hashtag, Thakaleb. Dwyer hadn't slept in 28 hours. His desk in the D.C. newsroom of the National Ledger was buried under open folders. Old campaign finance records and 2 empty coffee cups. He was an investigative journalist, the kind who didn't blink when lawyers threatened or when stories risked his press pass. His phone chimed. One new email. From Maya Rea, subject, urgent. You need to hear this attached audio _clip.mp3. Caleb clicked the file. It was scratchy, barely a second long. But as he leaned closer, he caught the words. His Russian wasn't great, but he knew enough. The delivery is live. He replayed the clip. It was from the Colbert interview, no doubt. He had watched that meltdown live. Everyone had. But he didn't hear this. He emailed Maya back. Where did this come from? She replied in under a minute. Senator's mic. Caught on raw studio feed. It's picked up by a CIA algorithm, but the file's now locked. I think someone buried it. Caleb sat back. This wasn't just gossip anymore. He picked up the phone and called his editor, but paused before dialing. If this audio had been scrubbed from official systems, someone didn't want it found. Maya had risked her job sending it. He needed to be careful. Instead, he saved the file to an encrypted drive and grabbed his jacket. There was one person who might explain this, an old contact in the Senate Tech Oversight Subcommittee. 15 minutes later, he was outside a Georgetown bar that didn't advertise its hours. Inside, the lighting was low, the booths private. He spotted her in the back corner. "Carla," he said. "Caleb," she replied, not looking up from her whiskey. "You're either here for a story or because you're finally running for office." Worse, audio leak. Russian from Vance's mic. During the Colbert disaster, that got her attention. Carla leaned in. "You sure it's real?" Came from a CIA analyst, Maya Reyes. Carla nodded slowly. "I've heard the name. Bright. Dangerous to be talking to you, though." Caleb played the clip on his phone. She listened twice, then looked around. "There's been chatter," she said. "Encrypted comes. High-level meetings behind closed doors. Stinnett IT just pulled 2 staffers for administrative leave. No reason given." Caleb's blood ran cold. "What kind of meetings?" "Classified. Homeland Security and Foreign Intelligence Committee. Unusual attendees. Names like Ellison and Kirkman." That was serious. Ellison handled cybersecurity breaches. Kirkman was a Russia specialist. "This isn't about a talk." "Show," Caleb muttered. "No," Carla said. "It's not." Meanwhile, in Langley, Maya stared at her darkened screen. Her security clearance had been silently downgraded. Her office access restricted. She'd tried logging into her project portal again, but it only flashed one word: reassigned. Someone had noticed her pull the file. She grabbed her bag and left the building, heart pounding. Outside, she made her way to a parking garage and ducked into her car. She drove without music. Every time a black SUV passed, her stomach tightened. She didn't trust anyone now. Back in New York, the Colbert team had moved on. The ratings for the unplanned intermission episode had broken season records. But Stephen Colbert wasn't celebrating. He sat with his head writer Nora, watching the replay for the 5th time. "Freeze there," he said, right before he walks off. Nora paused the video. "Can we enhance the background audio? Stephen, we're not the CIA." He leaned forward. "But someone said something? I didn't hear it during the taping, but now I swear there's something." Off. She adjusted the audio levels, played it again. This time, they both heard the faint whisper. Colbert went quiet. "That wasn't English," he said. "Right?" "No," Nora agreed. "And that wasn't one of us." He stood up, pacing the room. "Get CBS legal. I want to know who had access to those mics before the show." Back in D.C., Caleb arrived at his apartment and double-locked the door. He went straight to his laptop and started digging. He searched through recent Senate hearing transcripts, private security contractor leaks, and foreign influence watchdog logs. One thing popped up again and again. Project Downlink, an unconfirmed DARPA program rumored to monitor embedded signals in broadcast media. Then something else caught his eye. A name. Artem Dubrovsky, former Russian intelligence, supposedly, working for a Swiss data security firm. He'd been seen in D.C. 3 weeks earlier. It's unconfirmed visit to Capitol Hill. The more Caleb read, the colder his fingers got. This wasn't a coincidence. A whisper in Russian. A senator cracking on. Live TV. A CIA analyst silenced. A journalist sniffing around something bigger than he could understand. He stared out his window. Someone had used the Colbert interview for more than politics. It was a trigger, a signal. And the delivery, whatever it was, had already happened. A black van rolled slowly through a quiet Ohio suburb. Inside, 2 men sat in silence. One monitored a laptop connected to a satellite uplink. The other held a printed dossier with a red seal. "Confidential eyes only. Target is en route," the man with the laptop said. A map on his screen showed a blinking dot moving southwest. Senator J.D. Vance's car. He was scheduled to meet local veterans for a closed-door town hall, but the town hall was just a cover. In reality, he was headed to a farmhouse on the edge of Dayton, far from media eyes and nosy campaign staff. What no one knew, not even his closest aides, was that he wasn't driving to meet voters. He was going to meet Artem Dubrovsky. Hours earlier, after his explosive interview with Colbert, Vance had received a private signal, a short encrypted message through an old comms channel he hadn't used since before his Senate run. Just 3 words: change of plans. He knew who it was. Artem had promised years ago, back when Vance was still a venture capitalist flirting with populist ideas, that if the signal was ever given, they would proceed. Vance had laughed back then, thinking it would never come to that. Now the world had seen him humiliated on live TV, but Artem had sent the signal anyway, whatever it meant. It was already moving. At the same time, in Washington, Caleb sat across from Maya Reyes at a diner that served coffee like tar and didn't ask questions. Maya wore a hoodie and kept her head low. Caleb had printed the Russian phrase and spread out 3 photos: Vance, Artem Dubrovsky, and a strange building blueprint. "This is the place he's heading to," Caleb said. "I traced a secure land purchase in rural Ohio, leased by a shell company owned by Artem's firm. It's a private facility, satellite link, climate-controlled 24/7 surveillance." "What's inside?" Maya asked. "No idea," Caleb said. But I think the Colbert interview wasn't just a PR disaster. It was a distraction. Something else happened that night. Maybe even during the live feed. Maya tapped the blueprint. "A trigger or a cover," Caleb replied. She slid a USB stick across the table. "This is the last backup I pulled before they locked me out. It includes metadata from the Colbert broadcast feed." Someone inserted a second audio channel during the interview. Not CBS. Wait, a second channel. "Barely detectable," she said. "Coded in ultrasonic frequency. Only decodable if you knew the key. I ran it through a deep layer pattern analyzer. The result was chilling. She pulled out a folded paper and handed it to Caleb. On it was a simple string of numbers and symbols. 7.13, 25 to 11:42 p.m. Location locked, a date, a time, and something redacted. What happens on July 13th? Caleb whispered. That's what we need to find out. In Ohio, the farmhouse was surrounded by pine trees and silence. Vance's car pulled into the gravel path and stopped. He stepped out alone. A man opened the front door and nodded. Adam. Dubrowski. Older than Vance remembered, but his sharp blue eyes hadn't dulled. They walked inside without speaking. The room was empty except for a steel table and a satellite rig humming in the corner. You handled yourself poorly, Artem said coldly. Vance sat, jaw clenched. It got out of hand. You exposed the project. The signal wasn't supposed to transmit with that much noise. I didn't know the mic would pick it up. Sloppiness, Artem cut him off. But the protocol survived. The signal was received. Vance's hands curled into fists. Then why call me here? 'Cause now you are a liability. The words hung in the air like smoke. In D.C., Caleb and Maya broke into an abandoned office space that used to house a loadier lobbying firm, now empty, but once leased by a company that held joint meetings with Artem's security network. In the dusty back room, they found files, handwritten logs, and printed lists of satellite times. Maya spotted a locked drawer. Caleb jammed it open with a crowbar they'd brought just in case. Inside was a notebook, thin, unmarked, but on. The first page were coordinates. They matched the locked location from the ultrasonic signal. A warehouse on the outskirts of Riga, Latvia. Caleb looked at Maya. What's in Latvia? She turned pale. Biometric servers, stored identities. Black sites once used by rogue NATO intelligence. Caleb's mouth went dry. If that's the endpoint, then the interview wasn't just a trigger. It was the handshake. Back at the farmhouse, Vance stood as Artem typed something into a metal briefcase-sized device. The screen read, "Link established." You were the delivery system, Artem said. Your humiliation wasn't just personal. It created noise, covered bandwidth, masked movement. Movement of what? Artem looked at him. A list targets. People who will disappear on July 13th. Vance took a step back. Said we were disrupting the elite? You said we were fighting globalism. We are, Artem said, by replacing it. Then he pulled a gun from under the table and pointed it at Vance. You're no longer useful. But before he could fire, headlights cut through the trees. A black SUV, then another. Shouts in Russian, footsteps. Artem's calm cracked. They weren't supposed to find us yet. Vance dove to the ground as the front door shattered. Gunfire, chaos, and outside. A third SUV arrived, Caleb and Maya inside, hearts pounding. Watching as everything they'd uncovered exploded into action. Smoke rose from the shattered windows of the farmhouse. Inside, everything was chaos. Gunshots rang out. Vance crawled on the wooden floor, shards of glass slicing into his hands. He could hear men shouting in Russian and English, barking orders over crackling radios. The device on the table, the one Artem called the Link, flickered wildly. Blue code ran across its screen like a storm. Outside, Caleb and Maya ducked behind a pine tree, both frozen in shock. That's him, Caleb whispered. That's Vance. He's alive. Maya didn't blink, and that's Artem's private security. It's not Russian state. These are mercenaries. Another round of gunfire cracked through the air. The front of the farmhouse collapsed inward. Figures in black tactical gear swarmed in, but they weren't government. They had no insignia. These were ghost soldiers. Inside, Vance found himself face to face with Artem, who had ducked behind an overturned cabinet. His hand still clutched the small transmitter box, but now it was sparking damaged. You planned this, Vance spat. You wanted me dead? I plan to finish the operation, Artem growled. You were reckless. I gave you power. You gave me exposure. This isn't what you said it would be. No, Artem said coldly. Never is. He turned and made a run for the back exit. But as he did, the ceiling collapsed. A wooden beam cracked him in the side of the head. He fell to the floor unconscious, maybe worse. Caleb and Maya rushed toward the chaos, their faces covered by cloth masks. They moved around the perimeter, bypassing the guards, ducking low to avoid being seen. Caleb held a flash drive. Maya held a stun baton. They entered through the back. Inside, the smell of burning electronics and gunpowder filled the air. They found Vance leaning against a wall, blood trickling from his temple. His eyes were wide with fear and confusion. "You're CIA?" he asked, squinting at them. "No," Caleb said. "We're the reason you're still breathing. Who the hell are you?" Maya ignored the question. "Is that the transmitter?" Vance nodded toward the sparking device on the table. It was until bullets flew. Caleb rushed to it. Still warm. Something went out. We need to know what. Suddenly, from the front of the house, a low humming noise filled the air. Maya froze. "Drones," she said. Caleb pulled out a small scanner. It blinked red. "They're activating Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? Vance asked. Maya looked at him, dead serious. "Whatever you started, it's global now." Caleb yanked the hard drive from the device. It was small, steel-cased and blinking red. Then he turned to Vance. "You're coming with us. I have people. I have security." "No," Maya snapped. "You don't. They're either dead, paid off, or already flipped." Vance didn't move. Caleb grabbed him by the collar. "You don't understand. This isn't about you anymore." That device just lit up black sites across 3 continents. They moved quickly, slipping through the rear woods as the compound behind them burned. More drones buzzed overhead. Small surveillance, only no weapons. Just eyes in the sky. 15 minutes later, they reached a dirt road where a black SUV was hidden under brush. As Maya drove, Caleb plugged the salvage drive into his secure terminal. The screen flickered. A loading bar appeared. Then, files. Each file was titled with a name and a timestamp. The timestamps all pointed to July 13th, 2025, 11:42 p.m. Same as the signal. Caleb whispered. He clicked one. It opened to a dossier, name, photo, location, movements. Then a target rating. Level 1. High influence undermines transitional authority narrative. "These aren't spies," Maya said, her voice low. "These are journalists, scientists, judges." Vance stared at the screen, horrified. "I didn't know this was the goal." Caleb snapped at him. "You were the delivery system. We're the damn broadcast." "I thought we were taking down corruption," Vance stammered. "Exposing elite networks." Maya turned sharply in her seat. "You were being used. This isn't about exposure. This is control. Replacing systems with something worse." Vance stared out the window, pale. "Then what's next?" Caleb closed the laptop. "Damage control. We get this to someone who still cares about the truth." "Good luck finding that," Vance muttered. But Maya was already dialing a number on a burner phone. She didn't speak when the call connected. She just let the line sit, waiting. The rain hit the windshield like nails, cold, hard, relentless. The SUV sped through a mountain road outside Salzburg, Austria. Pine trees blurred past in streaks of green and black. Fog rolled low, covering everything like a secret. Inside, silence. Caleb drove, eyes sharp, jaw clenched. Maya sat beside him, flipping through a burner phone with shaking fingers. In the back seat, J.D. Vance stared blankly ahead. He hadn't spoken in hours. They were waiting for a message from someone they had never met. Someone named Silas Ignells. "Weak," Maya muttered. "We're close," Caleb replied. He said the chapel would be off Route 145. 2 more kilometers. Vance finally broke the silence. "This Silas, can we trust him?" "No," Maya said. "But right now, he's the only one who hasn't tried to kill you." Caleb glanced in the rearview mirror, and the only one who can decode the rest of the drive. Vance didn't respond. Kay looked down at his palms. The skin was still stained with dried blood from the shootout at Artem's farmhouse. They turned down a narrow gravel road. Up ahead, through the mist, a small stone chapel appeared. It looked ancient. The bell tower was cracked, the wooden doors weathered by time. As the car rolled to a stop, a man stepped from the shadows. Tall, gray coat, face hidden under a black wool cap. Maya stepped out first, keeping one hand on the pistol inside her jacket. "Silas?" she asked. The man nodded once. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Inside, we don't have long." They followed him. Into the chapel. Inside, candles flickered on the altar. Rows of pews were covered in dust. A laptop and a black duffel bag sat on the communion table. "I watched the Colbert broadcast," Silas said, setting up the laptop. "Most people saw a politician melt down. I saw a trigger phrase." Vance raised his head slowly. "So that whisper wasn't meant for your ears," Silas finished. "But you reacted. That confirmed it." Caleb pulled out the encrypted flash drive and handed it over. "Can you open the rest?" Silas inserted it into his machine. Lines of code danced across the screen. He typed quickly, silently. After a few seconds, he leaned back. "You found the root list, but not the network." "What network?" Silas's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The broadcast wasn't just live TV. It was a test of signal infiltration, satellite hijack, psychological priming. "Your interview, Senator," he glanced at Vance, "was the payload." "You're saying I was the virus?" Vance asked, stunned. Double quotes. "No," Silas said. "Your face was, your image, your voice, your conflict. It was processed, mirrored, and rebroadcast through shortwave and satellite nodes buried inside media. Infrastructure across 4 countries." Caleb's stomach sank. "Who ran it?" Silas's voice dropped to a near whisper. "A hybrid cell. Former intelligence operatives, ex-UN technocrats. Billionaire-backed engineers. They call themselves the Hollow Order." Maya blinked. "That sounds like conspiracy fiction." Silas looked her in the eye. "Does it feel fictional right now?" The air in the chapel grew still. He clicked another file open. Showed dozens of dots on a world map spread across Europe, the US, Southeast Asia. Each one of these is a digital trigger. Some already activated, some still dormant. The network spreads through media, feeds, smart speakers, even old analog frequencies. Subtle signals, repeated phrases, facial patterns, behavioral rewiring. Caleb finished. "There. Reshaping how people think without them realizing." Vance shook his head slowly. "And I was part of this." "You're the spark," Silas said, "but not the architect." He turned the laptop toward them. On screen was a photo, grainy, taken from an airport camera. It showed Artem alive, with another man beside him. "Wait." Caleb leaned closer. "That's Deputy Director Lannister, CIA." Silas nodded. Grimly, "He's not CIA anymore." "Not really. He went dark 3 years ago. Operated a ghost budget through shell companies. He's one of the founding nodes." Maya's pulse raced. "So the agency was in on it?" Silas shook his head. "No, just the pieces they didn't want to admit existed." "What's the end game?" Vance asked, his voice low. Silas hesitated. "They're building a second consensus. A version of reality they can deploy anytime. Doesn't matter what's true anymore. Just what people believe fast enough, loud enough." "And the list?" Caleb asked. "Everyone who could stop them," Silas replied. "Journalists, cryptographers, judges, whistleblowers." He stood and handed Maya a smaller chip. "This has the raw signal. The one broadcast during your meltdown. Senator, if someone with global reach rebroadcasts this in reverse, it could short-circuit the whole mirror network." "Someone like Colbert," Maya said. Silas smiled faintly. Exactly. No way he helps us, Vance scoffed. You might. Be surprised, Silas said. He's not just a comedian. He has more trust than most elected leaders. If he's shown the truth, Caleb interrupted, then we need to get back into a media studio. It means going back to New York, Maya said. Vance stood, pale but determined. Then let's go. I have debts to settle. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Silas handed Caleb one final envelope. This has codes you'll need if intercepted. Don't trust airports. Don't use phones. And if you see Artem again, if you look directly at Vance, finish it. This time, finish it. They exited the chapel into the storm. No time left. Just one chance to crash the signal before the hollow orders solidified their grip on reality itself. The plane flew low over the Atlantic. No airline logos. No flight path, just 4 people. Sealed inside a jet moving through night and silence. Vance sat at the back, his eyes hollow. Across from him, Maya stared at a photo on her phone. Artem and Deputy Director Lannister at a border checkpoint in Moldova. It's taken just 48 hours ago. They're moving fast, she said. Caleb sat near the cockpit, double-checking the encrypted chip Silas gave them. It contained the reverse signal, the key to burning the Hollow Order's mirror network down. But first, they needed a studio big enough to reach the world. And someone with the courage to speak it. Stephen Colbert. They landed outside Teterboro, New Jersey, just before dawn. No press, no police. Just a cold wind and a quiet car waiting near the runway. We'll go in through the back entrance, Maya said. Colbert's staff doesn't know we're coming. That's a risk. I've made worse entrances, Vance muttered, adjusting his collar. The car sped through the waking city. Sirens echoed faintly in the distance. The morning news was already buzzing about strange frequencies interfering with local broadcasts. Some claimed their smart speakers had been replaying snippets of last week's interview on loop. More noise, more confusion. They parked 2 blocks from the CBS building. Caleb handed each of them a earpiece. Once we're in, no phones. Keep moving. Maya and I will handle the signal. Vance, you talk to Colbert. Vance swallowed. Hard. You think he'll even let me in the same room? He might not, Maya said. But if he listens, just listens, we win. They approached through the alley. A side entrance led to the loading dock. It was guarded by a single security staffer on a smoke break. Maya flashed an old CBS crew ID. Tech emergency, she said quickly. Signal anomaly. The guard barely looked up. Weird stuff's been happening all morning. Yeah, fine. Go! They moved fast through the back corridors. Studio was quiet, too quiet. Most of the crew hadn't arrived yet. But the control room was already active, red lights blinking. Caleb whispered up ahead. There. Then a voice. Cold, smooth. Well, I suppose it was only a matter of time. They turned. Artem stood at the end of the hallway. Black suit, gloves, no smile. Vance froze. You should have stayed in Austria, Artem said. You should have stayed dead, Caleb shot back. 2 more men stepped out behind Artem, both armed. Caleb and Maya pulled their pistols, backing, against the wall. But Artem raised a hand. Easy. No shooting in the network's temple. This place still matters, you know? Symbols matter. He looked directly at Vance. You were a good vessel until you broke script. Vance's hands curled into fists. You used me. Artem stepped closer. We used everyone, presidents, celebrities, preachers. The trick isn't making people believe lies. It's making them forget what truth ever sounded like. Vance said nothing. Caleb's eyes flicked to the stairwell door. We don't need you to believe in truth. It's just one man with a voice and a camera. Artem sighed Colbert. He's already compromised. Everyone is. You're wrong, Maya said. Then a door slammed upstairs. Footsteps rushed down the hall. Stephen Colbert appeared, out of breath, holding a coffee mug. He stopped cold when he saw the guns, the agents, the tension. What the hell is happening, he said. Vance stepped forward. Stephen, listen, you were right that night. About all of it. But this goes way beyond me. You're being used, this studio, your platform. There's a signal hidden in our fight. A digital virus. Colbert blinked. You expect me to believe that? Don't, Vance said. Just listen. Maya handed him a tiny speaker. She pressed play. The signal reversed itself, an eerie hum, then sharp static, then silence. The studio lights flickered. Outside, a transformer burst. Colbert stepped back. What the hell was that? Oh, the thing inside your last broadcast, Maya said. We need to broadcast the reversal now, or the network takes hold. Artem laughed softly. You think truth can still go viral? Caleb pointed his gun at him. We'll try. Colbert stared at Vance. This isn't about ego, is it? Vance shook his head. No, this is about reality. After a long pause, Colbert turned. Studio B, we go live in 3 minutes. Chaos erupted. Artem lunged. A shot rang out. Caleb fired once, hitting one of the guards. The signal echoed across the world like a shattering mirror. Inside homes, subway cars, newsrooms, and military bases screens froze, then flickered. The usual noise of politics and entertainment disappeared. For one sharp moment, only Stephen Colbert's voice remained, calm but fierce. The truth, he said, is not trending. It's not profitable. But tonight, it's non-negotiable. Behind him, on a giant screen, rolled footage. Not edited, not explained. Just raw clips from hidden meetings, wiretapped conversations, and secret operations, names of officials, media executives, even foreign leaders nodding through digital briefings about signal influence. Audience manipulation and election interference. The Hollow Order had been building this empire for years. Tonight, it cracked wide open. Back in the CBS control room, Maya was shaking. It's working, she whispered. Every major node is lighting up: Canada, Berlin, Tokyo, even Moscow. Caleb sat beside her, his shoulder bleeding from a graze, but still typing furiously into the command console. We need 5 more minutes before they can counter the pulse. After that, the system collapses. Outside, agents in black vans were scrambling to shut down satellite links. But they were too late. In homes across America, a question was rising, louder than the newsfeed. What is real? Down in Studio B, Colbert didn't flinch. He kept going, even as CBS executives stormed into the hallway shouting legal threats. He called them by name. Janet Woolrich, VP of Compliance. You approved 6 flagged stories with doctored source files. Gasps behind the camera. His team stood frozen, not in fear, but in clarity. The kind that only comes when someone does the impossible. He told them everything about how Vance's outburst was engineered, about how conflict was currency, about how attention, not truth, had become the most dangerous weapon on Earth. And then he did the unthinkable. He handed the mic to Senator J.D. Vance. The studio held its breath. Vance stepped forward slowly, looking like a man at his own trial. But when he spoke, there was no blame, just quiet, brutal honesty. I let them use me, he said, because I thought I could use them back. I was wrong. He looked into the lens and millions watched. I thought populism was power. I thought attacking the press made me a rebel. But it made me a pawn. He paused. This isn't about left or right. This is about the mirror they built where nothing is true unless it's viral. And everything is entertainment, even democracy. He took a breath. If I disappear after tonight, don't look for me. Look for them. The ones who smile when you stop asking questions. Then the feed went black. The system had burned itself out. The Hollow Order's digital core gone. For a full 5 minutes, there was silence. Then outrage, celebration, confusion. Police flooded the studio, but Maya had already wiped the gear. Caleb vanished with the backup data into the chaos. Colbert was detained for national security review, though no charges stuck. And Vance. He walked out a side exit into the pouring rain and was never seen again. 3 weeks later, an anonymous file dropped into major newsrooms, the Hollow Protocols. A complete archive of communications between global media heads, shadow, operatives, and intelligence leaks. The document named over 200 people across 14 countries. Protests erupted in every major city. In D.C., 5 senators resigned. In London, the BBC was forced to admit long-denied affiliations. In New Delhi, a popular anchor publicly wept on air, saying we were all fed the same lie. Across the globe, a new question took root. If truth could be hidden this long, what else are we not seeing? Stephen Colbert returned to air a month. Later, he looked older, sharper. His first words, "Welcome to the second season of reality." The new show had no jokes, just facts. Brutal, raw, and undeniable. Some tuned out. Many more tuned in. His audience tripled. Meanwhile, Maya started, a nonprofit organization that trained citizen journalists in signal detection and surveillance resistance. She named it Glasslight. Caleb disappeared completely. Some said he was in Iceland. Others whispered he joined a ghost unit inside the UN. As for Vance, rumors said he fled to Eastern Europe, that he was in hiding with dissident tech activists, that he was building a new broadcast system untraceable and unbreakable. But no one really knew, till one night, 6 months later. At 2:17 a.m., during a quiet broadcast of a small local news station in Ohio, the screen blinked. A man's silhouette appeared. Grainy, calm. He spoke only one line. Truth isn't a moment. It's a resistance. Then silence. It's a signal. Cut. But it had already spread, uploaded, downloaded, clipped, and shared. It was just enough to remind the world the mirror might break, but someone must always hold the flashlight. And the war for reality never ends.